you had a video on TikTok, and I'm sure a column, I would imagine, that was behind it, where you talk about the cardinal directions, north, south, east, west. And you're saying in the Greek, one of the words for north was this word for bear because they saw a bear in the sky. So talk to us about the Hebrew words for the directions, because those are fascinating.
So when we say a Hebrew word, there really isn't one Hebrew, right? There's the same way in English, there's Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. So the same thing happens in Hebrew. So we have, in this case, we'll just talk about Biblical Hebrew, and then we'll talk about Modern Hebrew. And now they're related. In other words, a lot of times words in Modern Hebrew will come from the Bible. So that's sort of the default. But in the Bible, we don't have one system. In Modern Hebrew, it's Safon, Dorom, Mizrach, Marav. That's it. We don't have other words.
Say that a little bit slower for the audience.
Yeah, Safon, north, Dorom, south, Mizrach, east, and Marav, west. Okay. And all those words appear in the Bible. In other words, those appear in the Bible, but there's a lot of other words that appear in the Bible too, and they're used interchangeably. There's good questions about asking. So what, the people walking around in, I don't know, King David's time, did they use this word or that word? It must have been confusing if different people used different terms. And the truth is we don't know how this exactly worked. There seems to be different systems for referring, and those could be from different periods, because we know the biblical texts were written in different periods, or it could be geographical differences. But whatever it is, the systems they use are very interesting. And you can also see them, different other cultures use the same systems. So one of the systems follows the movement of the sun. Okay, so you refer to where the sun comes up. And that's why we get Mizrach from. The east is where the Shemesh Zorachat, where the sun rises. So it's Mizrach.
So Mizrach is literally the place of the rising.
The place of the rising. It's the rising. Okay, so it's the rising of the sun. And then Ma'arav is also, it's really the coming or the going away. They imagine the sun goes in when it sets. Because they had an idea of the sun going away into like a tent. You can see it in some poetic verses.
In the Tanakh, we have like the sun comes out like a what is it? A groom coming out of his chuppah, right?
Yeah.
So there's this imaginary sort of room where it goes. Yeah.
Like there's a tent to say the sun goes to sleep and it comes up over there, which is nice. Yeah. And then there's, so that's one system, follows the movement of the sun. Then there's another system, which is imagine the person standing and facing the east. Okay, so you're standing east, and then your right, the south, so that's Yamin. Yamin is this right, your right hand. So you say south, Yamin, or Teiman. Those mean right. And then north is left, small. And west is chora. For example, the Mediterranean is called the Yam HaChori. So it's the west.
Behind you.
So yeah, that's behind you, because you're facing the east, which is Kadima, Kedma.
So straight ahead.
Straight ahead, exactly. Right. So
that's why did they do that? Or what's your explanation of why they did that?
Well, it's the truth is we can know. We can try to guess. It's arbitrary. They could have oriented themselves in any direction. The word orient, by the way, that's also itself, right? It's to find your way towards the east. Right. So we have that also in English. We use the same idea. One possibility, just off the top of my head, is that that's where civilization was, the great nations, where culture was. Because at the time, Judah, Israel, those are quite backwater regions of the world where backward people live. And the great civilizations of Mesopotamia were in the east. So that might be the reason. I don't know. You don't think of
the explanation I've heard, and like
yeah.
like you said, we don't know, is that there were people who were traveling along the international caravan routes from Yemen to Damascus. Right, you take a boat from India with your spices to Yemen, and you offload somewhere in, I don't know what the port was back then, and then you go by land because of all the pirates, I don't know, and then you travel along the caravan route. And so if you come from Israel and you hang a right, you go to Yemen, which is called
Mhm.
Yemen, which means right. And if you
Mhm.
hang a left, you go to northern Syria. And in Canaanite inscriptions and Phoenician inscriptions, they mention a land called Shamal or Smol, we don't know how it was pronounced, right?
Mhm.
Which is in today northern Syria, southeastern Turkey,
Mhm.
right? So that actually fits. And then if you think about it, if you're coming by boat up the Red Sea, what's on your right? Yemen. And what's on your left? Somalia, which is from the word small, right? So it depended where your trade route was oriented. If it was oriented on the Silk Road coming from Israel, there's Yemen and Shamal, and if you're coming by boat, there's Yemen and Somalia, right? Somalia's on your left. Which,
Mhm.
by the way, says something interesting. Why isn't Yemen on the left? Because whoever named it that was coming from the Indian Ocean or the Arabian Sea, whatever that thing's called down there, right? So that's
With Yemen, so Yemen is in Arabic, right? So the
Mhm.
people that named the southern part of the peninsula, the Arabs, the
Mhm.
people of Yemen, of the
Yeah.
southern, didn't speak Arabic. This is an Arabic word for the people who live in the south. So they're
Mhm.
still facing to the east and talking about the people on their right that are the
Mhm.
Yemenis, the southern
Yeah,
people.
but how does that explain Somalia?
I actually don't know the etymology
Yeah,
of Somalia. It
yeah.
might
All
not
right.
be related at all.
Someone
Um,
can check and maybe there's other explanations and post it in the comments. So, all right. So it's really interesting. So you have the directions, which are front and back and right and left. And
there's another system that we didn't
what's the other
discuss.
system? Yeah, talk about
So
that.
there's important geographic signposts, important features
Hmm.
of geography.
Hmm.
So we said that in modern Hebrew and also in biblical Hebrew, there's tzafon, that's the north. Now,
Yeah.
tzafon, that comes from a name of a particular mountain. How tzafon, this is a mountain currently in sort of the border on the Mediterranean, close to the border between Turkey and Syria. So very north from Israel. But this was like a Mount Olympus of the Canaanite gods.
So
So it was
explain
a
what you mean by it was Mount Olympus. That's interesting.
the abode of the gods. For many years, there was a deep into like late antiquity. Even there was an important temple there,
Mhm.
and this was an important site. It's where the gods lived. If you climb up, you might meet Baal and I don't know, maybe El. The Baal, he's the rain god, and the temples that were there were dedicated to him. So he was a very important god. When you live in a place where it doesn't rain all summer, and your livelihood, your subsistence is dependent on rain, the rain god is king, and
Mhm.
Baal was a very important god in the region for many years.
Mhm.
I doubt anyone worships him now, but he had his 50 minutes of
Or maybe
fame.
they don't call him Baal anymore, but that's a different subject.
Yeah, there's in some respects that this is widely believed that a lot of the aspects of the Jewish God
Uh-huh.
are are taken from Baal. In other words, Baal may have a lot of our God may has a lot of Baal in him. And then the poetic verses that we find in the Bible, Psalms, etc., there's a lot of poems that we can see are very similar to poems to Baal in the ancient city of Ugarit, which was an ancient peoples that lived in what is now Lebanon. So there is something to that we may
Right,
not
so
call them.
Safon is north, where El Elyon had his palace, and his son maybe came to visit him. And then what's south in that system?
So that's the tricky one. So for south in modern Hebrew and also a lot in the Bible is darom. Now darom, we just don't know what that word means. It might be a site somewhere in the south, and it's just lost to us because we don't know of a site called darom. There is a root that might have to do with being high up, and then in other words, it could be related to Rome. This is a little difficult to explain, but it could be explained. And then it could be from the system of the movement of the sun. Because remember, we talked about the sun coming up, the sun going down, the sun being high would be appropriate for the south, because when the sun goes through the south, it goes in the high part of the sky.
That's in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, I guess it goes the other way, right?
I doubt the ancient Hebrews knew that.
No, I know. I'm just saying for the flat earthers there, so who are listening. Okay.
Hi, guys.
All right, so we have darom is the modern Hebrew word. So you have tzafon, and what was the opposite of tzafon in that alternative?
So that's darom, which may have been or not.
What's another word for south that we have in the Tanakh? We have Negba, right?
That's right. There we go. Negba, which refers to the desert in the south, the dry part.
So if I said to an Israeli today, Ani nosea Negba, would they have I'm traveling towards the Negev, would they understand what I'm saying?
They would understand. They wouldn't take it as they would take it as you were going south. They wouldn't take it as, oh, he's using a word for south. But if you're saying you're going to the Negev, unless you happen to be in Eilat,
then they wouldn't understand. If I was traveling from Eilat to Sharm el Sheikh, they wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
They think I'm going north, right?
Yeah. But and 99% of your conversations in Israel, if you say you're going Negba, people understand it. You're going to the desert, which is in the south, and that would make sense. There was also rarely the word yam, which means sea, does refer to south sometimes, which means it's referring to the Red Sea. But most of the time, when the word yam is used for direction, it actually refers to the Mediterranean. So it's referring to the west.
Yeah.
Now, how they could have the same word refer to south and west simultaneously, I do not know and don't understand. But we have verses.
It could be confusing.
Yeah, try to give somebody directions.
Well, and then in the Tanakh you have like Ever HaYarden, which usually means east of the Jordan. But I think there's one verse somewhere where it refers to west of the Jordan.
Well, it depends. Ever HaYarden, the other side of the Jordan, right? So if you're
Transjordan, right?
Transjordan. If you're in Jordan, what we call Jordan today, Ever HaYarden would be Israel or Palestine. And if you are in Israel, Palestine, and you're using Ever HaYarden, then you're referring to Jordan.